This is Auteur Detour, wherein three film lovers travel through the filmographies of cinema's most important directors in hopes of finding a greater understanding on the other side.
Hey everybody, welcome to Auteur Detour. Once again, it's me, Travis, here with Ian.
Hi.
And Chris.
Hello.
And once again, Travis White on the mic.
Cheeky, cheeky.
All right. Nihilists. Fuck me. I mean, say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism, dude. At least it's an ethos. The Coen brothers, or one of them, wrote these words for their iconic character Walter Sobchak. They were delivered by John Goodman in The Big Lebowski, and they reverberate in the sterile hallways and brick-walled suburban enclaves of their pitch-black, ice-cold comedy, Burn After Reading. Like The Big Lebowski, Burn After Reading's plot is complicated, convoluted, and in the end, largely inconsequential. Basically, a stuffy CIA analyst is demoted, quits the agency, and begins drunkenly recording his memoirs in his basement office. His wife, looking for financial info for leverage in their future divorce proceedings, burns his computer files to a disk, which then somehow make its way to a hard bodies gym where it's opened by a couple employees mistaken for top-secret government intelligence. One employee, middle-aged Linda Litsky, played by Frances McDormand, has just been denied coverage for cosmetic surgery and comes to believe that returning the disc might garner a reward that could help pay for her procedures. When that reward isn't forthcoming, she simply attempts to negotiate a better deal with the competing party. That is, she tries selling the disc to the Russian embassy. In a bit of light treason, the Russian ambassador correctly surmises is non-ideological. Through the power of positive thinking and with a can-do attitude, Linda gets the surgery she desires at the cost of multiple lives. A happy ending? I don't know. Guys, what did we learn?
I don't fucking know.
I have no fucking idea. Absolutely nothing.
I learned that the Coen brothers are very funny. And when they want to be. I mean, when it works, it's very funny. Like, this is probably the third or fourth time I've seen this movie. I saw it in the theater. And it's not just that the plot is inconsequential. It's also like they feel like they're just like out for a laugh again, which is funny coming off of No Country for Old Men, which is like such a powerful movie. And it really did just make me like feel like what they have settled into is what they have always idolized, which is like the Howard Hawks type of director where they can just kind of pop in and do a Bring Up Baby or a Rio Bravo, or they can do like a serious movie if they want. You know, it's right. I don't know. They've really fallen into that in like a beautiful way.
Yeah, absolute mastery. I do see this movie though, and we'll talk about it, but like as a weird like other side of the coin to No Country for Old Men in a really similar way that The Big Lebowski is like the flip side of the coin of Fargo. But anyway,
right. I'm gonna need Chris, to hear that.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
This is a bad movie, you guys.
Wait, what?
This is a bad movie.
No,
I'm gonna be that guy this week. I've seen it twice now. The first time I was like, I don't like this movie. I'm going to approach it with an open mind, watch it again thoroughly with an eye to detail, with everything we've been thinking about. It's still a bad movie. There's so much I just dislike about this one, although I got to give them credit for just doing whatever the hell they want to do. You know what I mean? Like they follow up No Country and they go, you know what? Let's just make a weird ass, like silly, funny movie, you know, with some of our favorite people, and it'll just be a fun old good time. I think people are going to enjoy seeing Brad Pitt and, you know, George Clooney. Oh, yeah.
We love Brad Pitt in this movie.
I did not like this movie one bit, you guys. Even the second viewing didn't do much for me, but I think we'll get into it.
Really interesting. We will get into it.
I'll just say, the first time I saw this movie, okay, so when the movie was released, it looked extremely wacky. And I was intrigued, of course, like as a Coen Brothers fan, you know, and again, like following up No Country for Old Men, I was like, of course they're doing this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Immediately, the reviews started hitting, you know, and like the kind of the general reaction was just like, this is awful, this is dark, this is like frivolous, this is whatever, and I was just like, oh, like that's a shame, you know. I kind of took it at its word a little bit. Saw it like a couple years later. and really enjoyed it and was like watching it. The movie started and I was like kind of getting into the vibe of it and stuff like that. And I was like, why did people not like this movie? It's a little dark or whatever, and then when Brad Pitt gets blown away in the closet,
that moment.
I was like, oh, I get it. I get why people don't like this movie. Like, I like, that was an amazing moment. One of the most shocking moments, like, in any movie I can think of.
You don't even see him with a gun either. Like, it's kind of out of nowhere. Like, he's not, like, waving his gun
he gets
around.
something from his drawer, and then, like he says, muscle memory kicks in, and his training kicks in, and he destroys this, like, complete idiot, oblivious, like, all the victims of Chigurh also just can't even conceive that he's in any real danger, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then, and neither can we, because we have been, just like, well, I'll just like kind of drop this little seedling in, but like, just like we are secure that we're watching Brad Pitt in a movie and he's not going to die. Mm-hmm. He is secure because his reality is shaped by an American culture that thinks like, oh, I'm going to get this 1 in a million chance. I can do whatever I want. Like, and that's why he's totally secure with that dumb grin on his face.
The thing that I like tying into what you're saying, like, do love about this movie so much is like every character's self-importance is like at a fucking peak for any movie. You know what I mean? It's like, everybody thinks that they're in a spy movie of their own, and none of them are, except for maybe the actual CIA, and they're the only ones who don't really act like they're in a spy movie, Yeah. But like Linda Litsky and Brad Pitt, or Frances McDormand and Brad Pitt, doing their like spy movie thing where they're like trying to extort this guy, and then like George Clooney, who's just like thinks he's being followed by spooks and all this stuff, and then like John Malkovich, who has this like degree of self-importance about his life that's just doesn't matter to anybody but him. Yeah. Like everybody's living in this world where they think that they're so important.
They've got main character syndrome.
Yeah, and the bottom line of the whole movie is like none of you fucking matter. Like it's all just fucking stupid. Like,
well, none of them, they all have an incredible self-importance and none of them believe in anything bigger than themselves. I think there's two important things, like Russia in this movie and what it stands for, and like religion in this movie. There's like a little hint where you see that what's his name, Jenkins, used to be a priest, right? And he's like, I'm much happier now that he's like given up the priesthood to be like amongst the people. He's the only one with any kind of who like believes in anything bigger than himself, and it's the Hard Bodies gym that he works for. He many times invokes like the authority and like values of the Hard Bodies establishment, and I think that comes from him being a man of the cloth. But now that we're like, I think the characters in this movie slide so easily into treasonous activities because they don't believe in America, they don't care about anything bigger than themselves, and Russia doesn't mean anything either. Like it's post-Soviet. There's like no. Like, there's no, what am I trying to say, ideology behind anything, literally anyone.
Right.
And that kind of is the downfall of everyone. You know what I mean? They don't have like humility. They don't,
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's maybe why I disliked this movie particularly, because I don't mind a couple people having no ideology or being fully nihilistic in some ways, but there should be like a counterbalance, and it just feels like with every character not giving a shit about anything but themselves, and even in the end. A lot of Coen Brothers movies wrap up with, there's the little guy who either wins or wins by not getting killed, basically. Like you get to escape with your life, or you don't get the money, but at least you're alive and you can live to tell the tale. Like this one just feels so disappointing when the shitty character of McDormand who wants all these plastic surgeries actually gets all these people killed and then gets what she wants in the end.
So funny.
The first time I saw it, it really got to me. I mean, I was like, holy shit! Like that bothered me for so much.
That final scene, it's a punchline movie to me. Like the whole thing is building to this punchline, and I thought that it nailed it so hard. The way that it's just like. Cuts to fucking credits, pans up really quick into the sky, and that Carter Burwell brilliant score of like, in pure like Jared Goldsmith fashion of just like dun 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 dun, like really self-serious again.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like, it happens so quickly that you're just like, oh, that's what you did. Like, that's what this was. Like, it cuts from John Malkovich just brutally slaughtering Richard Jenkins to just J.K. Simmons and I have his name here because I thought he was like
so
one
good.
of the MVPs. David Rash.
Yeah, so good.
Like doing their full Bob Newhart routine of just like, you know, like, well, he's not gonna. We're pretty sure he's not gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know, just like, you know, like in full like mumble. You know, I don't know.
That guy was on screen for like 1 minute, and when J.K. Simmons asked him like, "What did we learn?" I knew before he said the words that he was gonna just give some like kind of like non-answer because his character was so clearly drawn that I'm like, no, he will always defer to like power. He'll always defer to the guy behind the desk because that's like his like root in the agency, in the bureaucracy. And there was no like honor in that system. Also, you say like they were like the real spies, but they have no.
No,
sense
I
of,
shouldn't say that they were the real sisters. I just mean like if anybody in the reality of the movie is a real spy, it's them.
They have real authority. They have the power to get things done, unlike 99% of the other people in the movie. But they also have no. They don't care about justice. They like allow multiple murders to be covered up without any kind of anything hitting their conscience at any point. I
had forgotten till this watch, like since the last time I watched it, how late into the movie those characters come in. You know, it's really like 2/3 into the movie, if not more, before that first scene where David Rash has to explain to J.K. Simmons what's been happening. And it's a short movie. It's 90 minutes or 95 minutes or something like that. And like, you know, it's late into the movie that they describe what's happening, and you still think that you're supposed to be following what's happening in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know. And then that's the sort of first inkling that you get where J.K. Simmons is just like, I don't know, tell me what happens or if something happens. Like that, you know, he says like that, just like I don't know. I thought that, just to go back to what I want to know more about Chris's like differing opinion, because I will say that like, while I think that this movie is very funny, I also think that like some of the times that it's trying to be funny, I didn't find it funny. Like I don't like some of the hamminess where like, you know, Brad Pitt's clapping along in the car to his song.
You don't like that?
Well, I think it's
Brad
fine.
Pitt is perfect in this movie. Every shot hilarious. John Malkovich is my least favorite actor, and I don't really enjoy him ever. But I did like his little like bow ties, and I liked. I'll say, I think this is a hilarious movie, but I don't think it's like as laugh out loud funny as even some of their non-comedies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's really a comedic tone that you're just kind of like I just kind of like smile along to. Yeah, I don't know. So I get what you're saying when you say it's like not funny. It's not. It doesn't have the same kinds of laughs for me. But anyway, go.
Right.
Say more, Chris.
I agree. I mean, in the funny part, I thought I was going to laugh more this time around. Like, oh, I'm going to be more in tune with the jokes, and I know the plot ahead of time and all of this and stuff. But it's not. I think the problem for me is kind of touching on what you guys just said. There's hamminess, and there's like people that are like Richard Jenkins, who's playing it straight. Like you got Brad Pitt, who's basically like a grown-up version of his character Floyd from True Romance. Like if he grew up and got a job at Hard Bodies, you know, like, whoa, dude, whoa, you know, kind of like, but kind of brainless and hammy and kind of like a little over the top cartoony. Whereas you have like the Richard Jenkins, who's playing like a pretty straight John Malkovich for the most part. I don't think he was playing it
straight. I don't think either of them are playing it straight. I think Richard Jenkins is like so sorrowful in every look that he does, and so like over the top, but in like a subtle way.
And
I don't know. And then
sure. Well, I mean, and I think too the reactions of people, like they're none. I don't know. I love Coen Brother films where either everyone's kind of wacky, like Raising Arizona has this real aura of everyone has their own unique vibe, and it fits as a whole together. Like each person is a unique individual component of this strange movie, and they all fit together nicely. This one feels like a disparate creation of a bunch of different odd characters that don't tend to fit particularly well together. It just didn't feel like...
See, okay, well, in terms of what you're talking about, like this was planned as a movie by the Coen brothers as a way to get like these actors together and like put them in roles that they wanted to see them in, basically. So like they had been working, I think I've talked about it either to you guys separately or on the podcast, about how they've been working with Brad Pitt to make this World War II movie that never happened. And then that, fell apart. And so they had him in mind, and they were like, well, we want to work with Brad Pitt, but we want to have him be like the stupidest version of Brad Pitt that you can imagine. The same way that they do with George Clooney. They're like, we just want him to be super stupid. With Frances McDormand, obviously they, she's part of their family, in both senses of the word. And like, but in this one, it seems almost cruel the way that like they wanted her to be, every single shot that she's in, every scene that she's in opens up with a shot that's like a very strict close-up of like her wrinkles or her like, stretch marks or whatever things that they can do. And it's like, I think even in the script, I heard an interview with her where she said, like in the script, it says opens on close up of her crow's feet or whatever, it's just like and she's like, why would I want to take this role? But of course I'm going to, because I trust them so much. But like, it's like they clearly wrote this part for her. They wrote every role in this movie for the actor that got it, except for Tilda Swinton, who was actually one of my least favorite parts of the movie. But
excuse me?
But
dude, she's hilarious in this movie, and she does not get enough credit for how funny she is. Like, people talk about Tilda Swinton a lot, like Tilda Swinton, goddess, whatever. Like, she is funny, looking like a whippet in this movie in her neckerchiefs, and like so good.
I think that the only thing I didn't like was that, like I said, it's when the hammy jokes are happening. Like, and I wasn't even finished talking about that scene where Brad Pitt's dancing in the car, because I did think that he was great in that movie. In this movie. And I think that like, even in that scene, he's great. It just doesn't land as a joke to me, like as much as it is just like a funny character for him to be. Like, I wasn't laughing looking at him do that. You know what I mean? In the way that I think that they were supposed to. And in the same way,
disagree. I think I'm just going to say Brad Pitt dancing is like maybe my only like laugh out loud moments of this movie.
That's so weird.
As a huge fan of this movie, it's so good.
I laughed out loud like a few times during the movie. Obviously, if you hate John Malkovich, you're not going to. But like, as his ratcheting up his, fuck, like when he's just saying fuck like over and over and over again towards the end of the movie, and you can't get it out. I think that's like very funny to me. And I think that like the final shot going to credits, literally that cut or, swipe to the sky is a pure like laugh out loud moment to me. Like, I think it's so funny.
So just yeah.
So interestingly with this movie, I think this movie, it's interesting you're talking about like kind of maybe a different genesis for the script, maybe different than how they normally like come, create their stories, because it felt like a very different kind of story for them. Like, I've kind of like, the way I see their filmography, it's like kind of broken up between these movies where it's like a take on their most simple kind of plot mechanism that they keep kind of reusing. And then there's these other ones where it's just like a pure genre exercise where it's just like they're just doing a plot for the sake of it, and it doesn't feel like it's really consequential. And then oftentimes those are the movies that I have the least
right. It's like they switch between being incredibly referential and then like drawing from those references, like
something like that. Yeah, but this one feels different to me, and it feels like they're kind of reworking it like with purpose. Like, I feel like also with No Country for Old Men, I feel like that's the last of it's the first of like a new like part of their filmography, but I also feel like it was kind of the culmination of their previous like work. And that one again is like the ultimate version of their like somebody does one thing and then it kind of like snowballs. This one, there's no one line that gets crossed or like a value that's transgressed that causes problems, because no one has any values. It's just like literally like, someone puts something down on the ground and like it's just a slide towards everyone's life being ruined, and it's not really like it kind of just like it snowballs, and I don't know, in kind of like a different way. Like it didn't feel like the same. And
yeah, I know what you mean.
And I also noticed that like all the characters are old in their movies now. Like starting with the last one, like it feels like they're really like kind of orienting like what their interests are in a way. But I think that the fact that no one has any values and stuff is like they're really trying to say something about like America right now. And I think that's why the movie is so timeless and why it has weird parallels to like the Trump administration and stuff like that randomly. But we can get into that. Ian, you were saying? Sorry.
Oh, I don't know what I was saying, but I do.
Sorry.
I mean, I've got more to say about like that. What I was saying was that like they were writing all of these characters. I know what I was going to say. There's no real. I think if you take each individual story arc in the movie, you could pin it down to what you're talking about of their classic like a mistake going awry, or at least most of the storylines. Mm-hmm. But like, it doesn't follow a single storyline, like even more so than like Big Lebowski does it. Like it really is like just a interweaving mesh of just people that like you said, it's less about their storylines and more about just like them thinking that they're, you know, making decisions that are like based on, like you said, main character syndrome kind of thing, mm-hmm. when literally they're just like pieces of shit that are like trying to get theirs. You know what I mean? Like
it almost
everybody.
Yeah, it almost felt to me like a really short kind of TV series where like certain like things begin and start. Like the fact that you guys mentioned when we don't even see some of these CIA guys. J.K. Simmons doesn't appear until like
mm-hmm.
halfway through the movie. You know what I mean? They like almost never do something like that. Well, maybe a few exceptions.
That's funny that you say that, because I did like try to think of who else could have made this movie. Because part of me was thinking, like I said at the beginning of this talk, like this isn't an incredibly Coen Brothers-y movie. Like I don't know who else could have made it, but like you said, Travis, it's not like most of their other conceits like that they do in their movies. And the only person that I could think of that would make a movie similar to this is Armando Iannucci, you know, mm-hmm. that makes like Veep, and he's made a bunch of political sort of comedies. You know, he made that, what was the Russian one? The
Death of Stalin.
Death of Stalin, yeah. And In the Loop. And he's great, you know, and I feel like it's kind of borrowing from that sensibility. But he definitely does that, like multiple storylines going on at the same time, and everybody's like self-serious. And like, I don't know, it reminded me of him kind of. Yeah, I wonder if they're fans of his.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And it's political. I don't think that this movie is incredibly political in the same way that his movies aren't really political. I think that it's like a commentary on America for sure, but I don't think that it being in DC and it being in the world of like the CIA and the Treasury and these things is like, and the embassy and all that stuff is like, let me think of how to say this. I think that like my theory on screenwriting is that like, or writing in general, is that like you can only really write what you know. And I think that like, because that's what you're drawing from, I think that like a lot of this is about the world that they live in. Like when John Malkovich's character screams things like, he says something about how like there's no place for like abstract thought in these organizations. Like he's like hates how like the CIA, after they fire him, essentially is like this place where dreams go to die in his mind. Sure. And then when Richard Jenkins at the end comes up to him and he's like, "You represent hard body." He's like, "No, I don't." He's like, "No, I know what you represent. The idiocy of today." Like it feels like them being like kind of mocking themselves in this way of being like, we think that we're so self-important in the way that he did. And like, we think that we're here to make art, but really we're all just sort of like, you know, trying to get ours, like in this stupid, weird way. I don't know. It's like more of a critique of America than of like Washington, I guess.
Yeah, that's a totally valid reading. And I think more than even just mocking themselves, but saying like this is a universal thing. You know what I mean? That everybody feels like that their work is killing their dreams and their boss doesn't understand them and stuff like that. And saying it to his father, who seems to be like brain dead, is also like a weird thing. Like he's having this conversation and getting no response from him. But I do think his role of like, he was somebody who like presumably was in the CIA like during the Cold War, and he's one of these like, you know, guys who was like an Ivy League educated guy who just kind of was like given this role in life, you know what I mean, and just sitting there drinking and doing everything. And then that kind of world changed, you know, the Cold War ended, and then he's like, because they do refer to that, like, you know, in that scene, and now he doesn't know what to do with anything. Like, I think the Cold War ending and the kind of like American values versus Russian values as like a defining feature of like American thought, you know, which the Coen brothers have referenced like in a large number of their movies, like
Totally.
That no longer exists, and like what's left, like literally self-improvement in the most like kind of shallow sense, you know, no loyalty to country or spouse or really anything, no values of any kind. So I think it's political with like a lowercase p, little p.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, it is a good point. That's one thing I was actually thinking about too, was looking at themes. Like what do I see in this movie that we've seen before? And it's kind of a recurring topic, and you just touched on it, Travis, and like the passing of the guard from one generation to the next, and the way the world is not the same and it'll never be the same. Was it ever the same? I don't know, but it feels different, and the characters, you know, that we're following are lamenting the fact that, like, you know, our parents had it so much better, and what's this world that I've inherited, you know? It's not really emphasized a lot in this movie, but clearly Malkovich's character is kind of shaped by it, and I think that's an important conversation in the movie with him on the yacht with his dad. You know, that really, you know, came back around for me there. I appreciated that part of it. At least it's very Coen-y of a topic.
It's also in, like, you know, the fact that, like, Frances McDormand is so obsessed with aging, you know, and like she's, you know, and her dating like exploits and like that whole thing is, I don't know. She's like offended at how many old people she has to look at too, as she's like scrolling through the dating site.
And she's probably their same exact age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that she also, again, like nobody to me is as good at like fake laughing on camera as Frances McDormand. She's so funny when she fake laughs. I think all the time about when she does it in Man Who Wasn't There at the James Gandolfini dinner table, you know? But then like in this one, she does it several times, like in such a beautiful way. Yeah. The only time she's not funny to me is, again, I don't know, it's not even important to talk about, but like when she says like chicky chicky or like that kind of little things that they throw in there.
Yeah, well, I think that's just supposed to be her being weird. I don't think that's supposed to be like, she's funny. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's not like that's like one of her first lines, right? And it's like a very like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of is an assault on you. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I was like, oh, I hate this lady from the beginning. And I think that's intentional. Yeah. So I don't think that's supposed to be like, oh, that's
she's so good.
Yeah, she's good.
Tilda Swinton also is great. I didn't mean to like talk shit about Tilda Swinton at all, because I think she's like very funny. I think she's one of the funniest parts of a movie that's not very funny that we're going to cover soon, Hail Caesar. But I think that, like, you know, the only time, again, that it's not even her fault, but that like when they do things, maybe it's just because I've seen this movie more times than you're supposed to see this movie. Like, it's not a movie that necessarily requires 4 or 5 watchings. But it is like when he says, this is something that bothers me just on a personal level. When he says, I'm thinking about writing a memoir, like that scene, or a memoir.
Yeah.
When they have that scene in the bed, and she says, like, why would anybody be interested?
I think she just laughs. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the laugh.
And then later she said,
when they have a joke that like the audience should get, but then they show the person that they're talking to have the reaction that they want the audience to have, which is like, I mean, not they, but like anybody in a movie does that. It reads to me as like, just trust us to get the joke. I don't know.
No, but I don't think it was about, that moment wasn't just about like, oh, he's so self-important. It was also about she hates him. I mean, for like, as someone who does art, whose wife is like super supportive of him, like to just get laughed at. I mean, I thought that was
But I know,
fine.
Obviously. But I think that like, I don't know, it's, it wasn't even just a laugh. There's like a moment when he says something, and then she doesn't look at the camera, but it's the cinematic version of looking at the camera.
Okay.
But I'm just like, okay, I don't need that. Like, it's just a little bit like not trusting the audience's sense of humor enough to me. I don't know.
Were they right? Because this movie did not do well. This movie was not
That's
beloved.
a good point. That's a very good point.
They were right not to trust us.
I guess so.
Well,
I mean, it did well financially for sure. I think it was like, oh yeah. I don't write the numbers down, so I'm just going to make up numbers, but trust me that it's close to the right thing. It's something like it was made for like 40 million and it made like 119 million or something. Like it did really well worldwide.
I wonder the degree to which like actual marketing played a part, or just the fact that they were riding their reputation, especially after the Academy Award that they'd won just the year before for No Country.
That's a huge
and Fargo.
part. I think that
Big Lebowski.
anything that they would have made after No Country would have done really well. It definitely like, you know, it opened at number one, which is rare for a Coen Brothers movie, obviously. And that's definitely because they were coming off of the Oscar. Also, they're in giant A-list cast. I mean, we have yet to bring up George Clooney, who's basically
that was what I was about to
interrupt
interrupt with. Like, what do you guys think about? But anyway,
but it's George Clooney, Brad Pitt, like John
I was gonna
Malkovich,
say, and
like,
it was also advertised as like a light comedy. Which I think probably is part of the reason, at least, why it was like not successful with audiences. You know what I mean? Like not like beloved for a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I really liked it when I first saw it, but I understood why people didn't like it, and I understood like when I started watching it, I was like, oh, this feels a lot different than what it looked like from the trailers.
The George Clooney role. So he plays this, you know, philandering like sexaholic basically, and like I mean I don't believe in that, but that's a different conversation. But he you know, he's definitely cheating on his wife when he doesn't, like he's so sad when she divorces him. Like he doesn't really realize what he's doing, and he's just like a child in a lot of ways, you know. And like,
but he also doesn't like say anything specific about his wife, like, oh my god, this woman is like so incredible and I'm sad she's leaving me. He's just like, oh, I'm sad I don't have that like stability, right? I mean, it didn't seem like he was sad to be losing her, just sad to be losing his marriage.
Well, he has complimented her at various points in the movie, like the part where like
even to Tilda Swinton, where you would think that he, like the last person he would ever compliment his wife to is her.
Speaking of repeating the lines,
she like
too,
implies
like,
that they're you know,
right.
Bitch, whatever. Like she implies that Sandy is a cold like a bitch, and she's all actually, well, she's a nice lady. Like we are,
right,
you know,
right.
Like I don't think that like he's like man enough to be like actually in love with her because he's such a child, you know.
Right.
But I think that like he just doesn't like want to lose everything, including her, you know.
Yeah.
And he does call her when like shit hits the fan and is like crying and
for the first time he called her when like after
exactly.
he after he kills someone. I love the scene of him like with PTSD chopping like 100 carrots,
1,000 carrots,
like,
yeah,
Tilda Swinton like nagging him from the other room.
Yeah.
And then she says like the salad. It's like it's actually supposed to be part of a salad. You just mound. It's like Tony Montana at the end of Scarface, kind of mound of carrots.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, he was great in this movie, by the way. Like just like
I'm
again playing like a doofusy
like,
version of himself. Like
I like him in this role so much more than in Later Killers, where I hated him. But like in a role where he's
Intolerable Cruelty.
Sorry, Intolerable Cruelty. Thank you. Where I just hated him, but like I like him as a guy that like, you know, if he's gonna play unlikable, like this is the kind of unlikable I can imagine George Clooney actually being. I don't know, like he sort of fell into this, and maybe that's just me, you know, conjecture, but like he did fall into this like really naturally because he is like incredibly charming, and when he is out on his dates with Frances McDormand, you buy that like I don't know, he's really good in those scenes too. Like when she sees him laugh and then she feels okay to laugh and she's so happy again, you know, it's like, that's a beautiful moment to me. I love that. I don't know. No, I mean, it's not a beautiful moment because I want them to be together. They're both fucking terrible. It's just a beautiful moment, like as a movie of just like, I don't know. It's smart writing. I don't know, to me. The way that they showed the fake movie twice with the different reactions. I like that. Did you see who directed that Frank movie and wrote it?
No, I missed that.
What was it?
It's directed by Sam Raimi and written by Cormac McCarthy.
Oh, that's
really?
funny.
Yeah.
Is that on the credits of the movie? You can actually see them do that?
Easter
Really?
eggs.
I didn't notice that. That's great.
Yeah.
I did like how they got actual Dermot Mulroney.
Oh, yeah.
That was great. And again, I think it's important that they show them going to the movie and seeing the same movie again, and it's just totally like insipid, like tripe, because I think their kind of reality is shaped by that. that kind of movie version of what like American life is, you know. And when there's that very bleak line where she's like, opportunities don't come like every day like this. This is like when you slip on ice in front of a fancy restaurant or something like that. That's like, totally. You know, like this is
that's
their
her
ticket.
Dream.
Yeah, this is it's like very like just feeling like for sure like something's gonna happen to like, you know, to you, and you're gonna be like plucked like Willy Wonka like out of obscurity and like get surgery and become beautiful and be like everything that you want to be. And like it's just very it is dark and it is kind of like upsetting.
It is dark.
But it's so good.
There's also sex scenes
so
in this
real.
movie. We haven't
extremely awkward sex scenes. Yeah.
There's extremely awkward, but like, you know, we've talked about it through this whole series, and like the closest one to this is in Fargo when it shows Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare in the hotel room.
Mm-hmm. There's some other people there too, people who haven't seen Fargo.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, I was just like, I had forgotten about this one when we had talked about it in the past, and there's a few of them, I think, or at least
all upsetting.
But it does. The first one is another off camera, and you just hear it when it's on the houseboat with Tilda Swinton and George Clooney.
Yeah.
Which is a move of theirs that they like to do.
Well, you also, it's funny when you say a move of theirs, not showing stuff on camera, just like the kind of tragic ending, or, you know, the most tragic part of the ending of No Country for Old Men was off camera. The happy ending, you know, or tragic ending, however you want to take it, of this movie is also completely done off camera. And I don't know, that's interesting to me that they used that trick kind of right again, you know what I mean? And like, it makes it like, if you saw her personal reaction to like getting the surgery, it would kind of make it more, I don't want to say relatable, but, you know, you'd kind of like relate to it on some sort of human level. Seeing her face and stuff like that, it was all worth it. An emotional dimension that they didn't even want you to consider. It's just like just here's the facts, like just, you know, sit in the injustice of these facts, and it was just like it's such a bummer. I mean,
almost every one of the story arcs is wrapped up off camera. I mean, you don't see George Clooney go to the airport and flee, really. You don't see John Malkovich get shot even. Like, that's like, they just mention it, you know? I don't know.
And it has a totally different feel happening off camera and not happening it's
maybe that was one of the things I didn't care for either. You know what I mean? It's like, it felt a little lazy writing wise, but you're right. There is an actual impact being felt there. And you don't want to empathize. It makes sense. You know, you don't want to like enjoy the delight in Frances McDormand's face. That shouldn't end the movie with like, yay! It was all these dead bodies are well worth it. Like
that's what would have pushed it into like the intolerable cruelty realm. As if it would have been like, that's another movie where every character is so unlikable, and you leave it feeling disgusted. The reason why I don't feel disgusted after leaving this movie, maybe you did, was because like, you're watching a Coen brothers, like, using their mastery of filmmaking. Like, that's who I'm watching. It's less so, like, I don't know. It's less that I'm, like, following the story arc and trying to figure out what's, like, who's going to win and who's going to lose and that kind of stuff, as much as it is just, like, I'm laughing when they want me to laugh. And I mean, for the most part, namely at the end. And then, like, I'm just, like, watching these, you know, A-list stars be like, really feel like they're having fun too. Like, I felt like Brad Pitt was having fun. I felt like George Clooney was having fun. I know that's not much to say about a movie, but it does work sometimes. Like, I liked that. Like, I didn't feel like Catherine Zeta-Jones and George Clooney were having fun in
hell no.
I wasn't having fun. But Chris, like, what, as someone who like left this movie with like a bad taste in their mouth, how did you feel about that moment where Brad Pitt got shot in the head? Like, how did that affect? Did you like the movie and then at that point check out? Like, I just feel like that is such a huge moment that we're not giving like enough like. Yeah, when you talk about like the Coen brothers as kind of masterful conductors of this film.
Yeah,
like,
they have.
I've never like, what other movie like screws with you to that extent? Like, you know what I mean? Just was like,
it really was in the theater so shocking.
I wish I saw this in a theater. I wish wish I saw this in the theater.
No, absolutely. That was really what felt like a Coen Brother movie to me. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. Because, I mean, he's even got the silly smile on his face right before the hole gets blown straight through his forehead.
Yeah, and he, leans into it.
Yeah,
he literally, smiles and leans into it.
Whoa.
So
shouldn't you be hiding? You know? He doesn't even cross his mind. That, to me, was the, single Coen Brothers movie element to this one, and I was like, oh, great, and it kind of brought me right back into it. Mm-hmm. And then
so when were you out? I mean,
I wasn't ever out of the movie. I was just never riveted or into my seat. Like No Country for Old Men, I'm glued to the entire time. It looks gorgeous. It's moving effortlessly. I think, again, my relationship with the characters is the biggest factor for me in this particular film. I don't mind disliking certain characters, but disliking almost every character is really tough. Brad Pitt's character is not unlikable, but he feels like he doesn't fit into the movie per se. You know, he's fun to watch because he's being silly, but again, it's not the tone that it felt that the rest of the film was being set. You know, that part was great. I wish there was more little moments like that. Just I don't mean twists and all of this crazy stuff, but it feels like there was more shocking points.
That got a big laugh in the theater. I wonder if, I'm guessing it didn't for you, but when George Clooney reveals what he's been building.
Okay, right.
And there's this moment of tension.
So what I thought the second time, yes, that part got me, and I'm like, wait, what? Because this second time, I'm paying more attention to the music and the way it's setting the tone, right? So the first time I'm watching it, it's the music is building and it's going to his house. It's dum 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 dum. And he's got the creaky metal piece in his hand, and we don't know what it does. And he's like dum dum dum. And he's kind of got this really intense look. I'm like, oh shit, he's a serial killer. He's doing something, or he's like I don't know, there's some weird Coen thing. He's gonna lock somebody in his basement. Something's going on with this guy that we can't possibly know yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then at the end, it's just a seat with a dildo that pops up. I'm like,
which is like a miniature version of what this whole movie is, because the whole time you think some mechanism is happening where there is some secret somewhere or something, and it's all just people fucking each other and fucking each other over. It's all just the most petty, shallow bullshit. And
I absolutely remember when this movie came out and trying to getting into a conversation with somebody who didn't like it right after I saw it, and I'm just explaining that exact argument that you're saying of just the whole movie is distilled into this one moment where you think it's this you think that it's this dramatic fucking spy thriller where you don't know if he's about to slaughter her in a chair, in a fucking Saw style chair,
right? And
then he pushes one little push on the chair and a giant dildo not just pops up but flops around
with the funniest little sound effect where it's
it's the funniest part. I got two laughs out of this, and that both involves that scene, the dildo machine. But one where he's describing $100, you know, minus my labor, whatever, except for the dildo. Those things are expensive. And I worked at an adult store way back in the day, and it's so true. I'm there's no way this whole thing costs $100. That dildo alone is probably half of that right there. And the other part is when he's when he's destroying it, and it's just it won't go away. It's just kind of flopping around there. That did get a.
That's when George Clooney really there's two scenes where I think he's really funny in this movie. I think he's great in the whole movie, but when he breaks down because his wife is divorcing him, he thinks he's being followed the whole movie. Turns out he is being followed, but it's not a spy thriller. He's being followed because he's cheating on his wife, and she knows. And
he's also being followed by special agents, though, that were following Osborne Cox.
Yeah,
that's another kind of Coen-y twist too, or motif, right? Where people being followed by people you're not totally sure who they are.
Yep.
You know?
Right.
Totally. Absolutely. Well, we should get into some of those Coen things, but I'll just say that moment when he in a Kubrickian just tearing apart the fucking dildo machine in not slow motion, but dramatic motion. I don't know what you would describe that as. But
I think that the mallet hits the dildo right before it cuts. It's such a perfect, just a 1 in 100 chance, of filming something to capture that perfectly. And he's playing it at the perfect pitch of because again, I almost never buy George Clooney performances when he's being serious. You know what I mean? Unless he's just being kind of an asshole kind of version of himself, something like Syriana or what's that movie that he did with the other one with Tilda Swinton, the serious one?
Yeah, Michael Clayton.
Michael Clayton.
Yeah, Clayton, yeah.
So, but like in this movie, like if he had played the like sadness seriously, I wouldn't have bought it. But playing it like he's just goofing around, that I love, and I think he does wonderfully.
Yeah. And then the other scene is, when he thinks that Frances McDormand is a spy, because like, I think that like that is a great performance by him too. When he's like panically, because again, it's not like he's playing goofy, but not hamming it up in a weird way. I don't know. Mm-hmm. There's some middle ground that he found, which is really good.
I also feel like that looking for like or seeing a pattern in something, I don't know, looking for like meaning in the universe or thinking you see it and just being horrified at being seen is like some sort of metaphor too for like wanting to like see order in the universe, and like the idea that there might be somebody like watching you, like a godlike figure or something like that, is like just sends him into terror. He doesn't like face what he did and it's like, oh my God, I killed your friend, like, and have like a moral kind of awakening or something like that. It's just like, I gotta go to Venezuela.
Yeah, and he sees, this is not going to read on the podcast because it's audio, but like he sees somebody
don't worry about it.
He sees somebody do the hand, speaking into the bottom of the watch move that like CIA agents do, like, which is something that he did as he's describing what his job was as a Secret Service agent in the past, and he's like, that's all repeating stuff, but obviously that's like him, like you said, like wanting to see himself as this like big important figure, I don't know.
Yeah, that is speaking of themes, the circularity, as you always mention, Ian, definitely comes back around in this movie. I mean, it starts and ends on the same sort of idea. Zooms in into the Virginia CIA headquarters, zooms out of the same way. They go back to see the same movie. It's like the same a lot of common circular occurrences keep coming back around in this one, I think, and that's something we've seen plenty of times in the past.
A lot of visual wheels in the gym, and when I just cracked up when Brad Pitt came. I mean, I honestly, every time Brad Pitt's on screen, I'm laughing basically.
He's great,
movie. But
really
now you change your tune.
No, I just mean I wasn't judging his performance in that scene. I just don't like it when it's like, I don't know, keep going.
When he goes into the building with his bike wheel, just holding his bike wheel, I don't know, that cracked me up.
Also, when he says,
he's holding his helmet,
you think it's a fucking Schwinn. Like, that's a great line.
Well, the fact that he gets in the bike or the car with the helmet and everything, he just kind of sits there. That was good. I gotta say. He's just holding on to this stupid bike helmet. That's great.
No, I do think that he was great. I do think that, like I said, the only person that didn't work completely for me was, in a weird way, I guess I should put it this way, like, was when the Coen brothers didn't trust you to like get him or Tilda Swinton or like their perspectives, and they were too over the top with it. Like, that's how I felt in that dancing scene, was that like, okay, we get that this guy's a fucking, like, we have all met this guy, like a knucklehead, you know what I mean? Like a dummy jock guy that's just like dancing to his own beat at all times. You don't have to show us that. I don't know. It doesn't work when it's like over the top to me in a weird way.
Was it not a joy to watch him dance? I thought it was, but did you guys think it was a Meet Joe Black metaphor that
yes, Mr. Black. That's the first thing you think of. Yes, Mr. Black.
I'm sad to say I thought of it. There's no Roger Deakins in this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of changes to their kind of routine.
Yeah, that's a change.
Yeah.
He was working on Revolutionary Road. I heard an interview with him, which was depressing to me, like being this far into their lexicon, and he's worked with them since Barton Fink. And he says, like, we don't plan things, like they come to me and I do it because I'll always do what they want me to do. But like, he has missed a few of their movies in the last few, in this one, and then in the few that are coming, he doesn't do all of them. Mm-hmm. And he says in this interview, he says, like, if they call me, I'll show up, but I never know if they're going to call me or not. Like, even he doesn't have like the security with them, but he just like assumes that he'll be called, which, that's crazy. He's like a fucking 15-time Academy Award winning cinematographer or whatever. Right. But like, it was kind of weird the way he said it, because he didn't work on this one. He didn't work on inside Llewyn Davis, and only because he didn't know that they were gearing up to make a movie, so he took these other jobs. And he's just like, yeah, you know, if I would have known that they would have, I would have worked with them. I'll always work with them, but if they call me, I'll show up. If they don't, well, I gotta work or whatever. It was like, oh,
That's so weird.
poor Roger Deakins.
He's fine. Don't worry about
Just
it.
kidding.
How good did this movie look, though? I mean, I thought it was like a great
The
look
guy
in
who
this
did
movie.
this,
the guy?
I like.
Emmanuel
I don't remember his
Lubezki?
name.
Yeah, it's
Is
the
that who it was?
cinematographer for like Children of Men and stuff.
Yeah, he did Children of Men. That's what I was gonna say. I don't know.
And A Little
much about
Princess. He
his-
did almost all of Alfonso Cuarón's movies
Okay.
up until Roma. He also did like The Revenant and like a bunch of movies from
Inarritu.
Yeah, I'm not
Inarritu.
really familiar. I just looked
Oh
him
my
up
God.
and saw that he did like Children of Men and.
After Roger
There was
Deakins, he's
another one.
probably like the hippest in like film, like, you know, like in the film world, like the hippest cinematographer, like the most like
Uzbeki.
the name that most like people know. Not to take anything away from you, Ian, you obviously know your stuff, but like he's
Yeah,
just
no.
somebody like on Twitter who everybody like talks about.
Okay.
Yeah, so speaking of cinematography, that's one thing I kind of like. I stood back and noticed when they're outside. There's something about the red of the hard body shirt that looks a certain deep, rich color outside next to this brownstone. Everything's kind of like grayish. It's like really, it was a good look. I have to say, like Brad Pitt's waiting outside or something. I can't remember, but that was one of the few scenes I like kind of just looked at and went, oh, it's really like nice done with the color grading. You know, just I don't know,
Yeah.
nice little touch.
Yeah.
No, I did really like, because it is another one of those movies that could have felt like, you know, the cinematography wouldn't have mattered necessarily.
Totally.
And he really did an incredible job with it. Like it stands out.
That one shot at the Princeton like reunion dinner with those dudes
Yes.
was like a miniature. The way the camera moves and stuff, it's like a miniature. Could have been like the boardroom at Hudsucker, like, you know what I mean? It was just like in one shot you get
Absolutely.
all that information and you get like the cigar smoke and stuff like that, and you cut away and you're like, wow. And it also showed to me like how they've matured as filmmakers, where you don't have to have like a million visual gags about
Yeah.
like, look how this world is, you know what I mean? Like you just like take it all in really quickly.
Also, speaking of that scene, you know, one thing that this movie has that their movies almost never have, I guess The Big Lebowski does a little bit, but in a different way, in a completely different way, is that like they deal with alcoholism in this movie in a weird way. Like John Malkovich, I noticed that the sound design every time he pours himself a drink is so precise. Like it's got that clink of him, you know, cracking the ice cubes and clinking them into the glass, and it's like very specific and distinct, like in the sound mix. And like just the fact that like his character everybody knows is a lush, and she talks about it, and like it shows him passed out on the chair like upside down, you know, and it's like this underlying thing of his character. And you know, we talked about it on text a while ago, about like how we never really talk about like the inner lives of the Coen brothers in a serious way. And one thing that I thought of like while we were talking about their bad period was like, I wonder if any of them has ever dealt with like alcoholism or drug abuse. You know what I mean? Like, because it's one of those things that you don't necessarily think about, and I don't know the answer, so I'm not going to presume. But like, that is one of those things where like I can imagine if they had this like phase of like dealing with, you know, substance abuse or drug or alcoholism in any way, it would affect their movies. And when I was trying to figure out why Lady Killers was so bad, I was thinking like, well, maybe they were like in a bad place themselves. Like maybe they were drinking too much or something like that, you know? And then like, I don't know if that's true. It was interesting to me that this was like a part of this movie, like in a, I don't know, in a pointed way, in a way that they never really show it before.
I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but like I always feel like when I hear people talk about like the CIA and stuff, it's a thing that like that kind of, there's a lot of drinking like in that culture. I mean, that's just a random anecdotal thing that I feel like I've picked up.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of how I made sense of that when I was watching the movie.
That makes sense.
Also,
yeah.
when they talk about Mormons in the CIA, I don't know if you know that like Mormons are like disproportionately represented in the CIA.
I did
So
know
like I feel like that was again like those like drunken Princeton like Ivy League like, you know, boys club kind of guys. I felt like it was just I didn't really feel like it was so powerful, like they must be touching on something that's important
I
to them.
think I
To me, it was
only
just
thought
like in like just really capturing that world and like with a few little details.
I agree with you. I think I only thought of it because I had been reckoning with this idea of like, that's something I never really think of when I anticipate why a director is doing something bad, is that maybe they're going through something like off screen, you know, when they have like a bad few years or something. You know, I mean, who knows? There's no way of really knowing. But also like the fact that like Frances McDormand is back in this one when she hadn't been in the last one, and like who knows what the hell is going on in their lives, you know?
Speaking of the last time we saw Frances McDormand, she was getting wasted in The Man Who Wasn't There, right? Or was she in a movie before that since then?
I don't think so. I think
Anyway.
that's it.
Yeah, but she was, she was a little bit alcoholic in that movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And so was Richard Jenkins, actually.
Yes.
That's true. That's true.
That's a
I
big
guess they
drinking
are.
movie.
And he's like a lawyer to a similar world to that. You know?
Right. Definitely. But yeah, alcoholism's not a huge theme. Definitely not drug use per se. I mean, other than like a little bit of a, you know, the Big Lebowski
Like I said,
and some
like
marijuana.
in Big Lebowski, but it's not.
But it's not like a problem. It's just a facet of his personality.
Exactly.
You know, it's not portrayed as an issue to be overcome or a character flaw.
Right. Exactly. It's more of like a superpower.
I feel like we're kind of running out of things to talk about with this movie.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, we can rate them. We're already at the hour mark almost. Because I really did love this movie, but I do feel like it's not a movie that's supposed to be one of their best movies in a weird way. You know, it feels like I don't know.
I don't know. I think this movie has more to say about like our world than like some of their like better movies. I don't know, or more serious movies.
Yeah, but even if it does, it's not like saying it in a way that they're like trying to change the world. Maybe it's just like that they have these masters now that like, you know, they know what they're doing and they aren't going to not like, I don't know. I feel like.
I think this movie is kind of similar to Armando Iannucci or whatever, you know, but I feel like it's almost like the better version of that, like, or like just like a perfect version of that, not as like in the weeds as his stuff, you know, but just in terms of like a comedy of manners about this kind of world, you know, it's like a pretty amazing movie to me. And like, I don't feel like there are a lot of other movies like this, and certainly again not totally movies where agree, Brad Pitt gets like shot through the face like at the like halfway point. I just like I treasure this movie, and I feel like you know, the state of like comedies is not really great in movies right now, so like to me this is like an important movie to be cherished and not, you know, I think it was really dismissed when it came out, and I think we should try to build it up. And Chris, I totally respect your negative opinion. If you don't think it's funny,
that's another part of it. It's like just like with you with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Travis. Like if you don't think it's funny,
no, that's totally different. That's totally different.
No, it's like if you don't think it's funny, you're not gonna like it. That's just like the problem with the comedy. And I thought this was very funny, and so I love it. But I also think, like you said, like it's beyond just being funny, in that it is like, I mean, bringing it back to what I was saying about Howard Hawks, like it's like them being sort of masterful with just like, I don't know, if we want to make a comedy now, we're going to make a comedy. It's going to have the same amount of skill put into it as our like Oscar winning serious movie. You know what I mean? They can't turn it. I don't know. They aren't turning it off now. It's like really, they're just firing to me. It's really working. Which is why, like, it is high on my list. When I say it doesn't want to be one of their more important movies. What I mean is that, like, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like they were like in the same way that they sort of were like scaling it back for Fargo. I feel like in a way that they were just kind of just like, but don't forget, like, we're funny guys that make silly comedies. Like, we can do that again in this movie, you know?
Right, but it wasn't, again, as like crazy and wacky as something like Big Lebowski or Raising Arizona. You know what I mean? It's more laser focused at like a, you know, like creating like a believable world that, I don't know. It's definitely goofy, and Brad Pitt definitely like embodies that kind of goofiness, but it's also I don't know, I think they've got like something to say about people, and I like the farcical tone. I like the kind of darkness of it. You know, I saw this old photo from San Francisco in like the 50s, and it was like all these people. It was colorized though. It was like not colorized, but it was actually it was color photography from the 50s, so it had this really cool look to it. Because you don't see a lot of color imagery like from real life from that era, and it was all these people walking down the street like in their suits, in their dresses, you know, the stuff that people wore downtown San Francisco at the time, like multiple people of color on the street. And it just sort of like, when you see old movies kind of tackle like past eras and stuff like that, they often kind of imagine the world to be whiter because the representation in media was whiter at the time, when there was a lot more integration at those times, like than we even imagine. 100%. And I see this every time when I look at historical stuff, like it keeps popping out at you. How badly it's misrepresented even now today, even when people try to take that stuff into account.
This is in Langley, Virginia. Like it's ridiculous. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I'm also right about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, but go on.
Okay. Fargo. That one is very racist. Fargo, No Country for Old Men, The Big Lebowski. Sorry, Travis. Miller's Crossing.
That's okay.
Raising Arizona. Blood Simple. Burn After Reading. The Man Who Wasn't There. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Barton Fink, Hudsucker Proxy, Intolerable Cruelty, The Lady Killers.
All right. Mine's pretty much the same. I think I switched one or two around, but so No Country for Old Men's holding down number one. Again, almost tied with Fargo, but I've got it at number one. Number two, Fargo. 3, Big Lebowski. 4, actually is Blood Simple. I swapped it with The Man Who Wasn't There, is now down to number 5. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Raising Arizona, Barton Fink, Miller's Crossing, Hudsucker Proxy, and then the bottom of the barrel are Burn After Reading, Intolerable Cruelty, and Lady Killers. Ugh.
Whoa.
Sorry, not sorry, guys.
Oh man, that's so sad that Burn After Reading is down there with the dregs.
It is, but hey, that's life, Travis. That's life.
Whoa, harsh. So, yeah, mine is still kind of in a tiered system, so I'm not going to give like individual numbers, but there are like they're very distinct tiers to me, except for there's like 2 kind of exceptions. So my top tier, No Country for Old Men, Fargo, Raising Arizona, Big Lebowski. Second tier, extremely strong tier, Man Who Wasn't There, Burn After Reading. Right below there, just like a hair level underneath, Blood Simple. And maybe you could bump that up to the second tier, but you could also put it in the third tier, which is Hudsucker Proxy, Barton Fink, Miller's Crossing. Just like incredible, again, exercises in style that don't really land 100% for me. Then there's another kind of like in-between movie, which is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where I feel like they're doing a lot of cool stuff in it, but it doesn't land at all for me. Like none of the jokes land, not all the performances land, certain ones in particular. And then the bottom of the list, which are just unenjoyable. I hope I never see them again for the rest of my life. Intolerable Cruelty and Lady Killers. And again, I feel like it's because they're such powerful filmmakers that they can just rub you so hard the wrong way with those movies, where they just like miss the mark so bad that it just like it's painful. But I don't think I missed any, but I may have.
No, I think you got them.
Okay,
sounds about right.
That's my list. But yeah, Burn After Reading. Loved watching it. Had a great time.
Me too. I'm glad you did.
It was like the first time I watched it, again, like Brad Pitt getting shot was such a shock to my system, but it didn't really hurt until Frances McDormand got the surgery at the end. And I was like, no, like that, like I couldn't get over that. And then this time it was more just like, it was just kind of this perfectly constructed kind of punchline that just, that I really appreciated. So, yeah.
All right. Good talk. So, what's the next one?
Who knows?
We'll Simple Man. Simple Man.
Oh, Simple Man.
Serious
Or Serious Man. A Simple Plan. Simple. Speaking of Sam Raimi, Serious Man coming up next.
All right. I'm excited.
All
We're
right,
getting
guys.
close to the end of this.
I know.
been
Yeah,
real.
we should like get our final thoughts together. Coen Brothers,
Yeah.
like concluding
Coen
thoughts.
Brothers equal good.
Only a few left.
Yeah.
Only a few left. All right, guys.
All right, guys. Good
Bye.
talk.
Until we
Bye.
meet again. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Auteur Detour. We'll see you again next week.